Welcome back, boys and girls, ladies and gents, dog fans alike. It is Monday. We are on Montlake, and I am your host, Montlake Miguel. Welcome to Mondays on Montlake. On today's episode, it's going to be a little bit different than normal. I guess that's kind of what it's been since I went through all the position battles and all that. But today, we have a very interesting topic, and we'll get to that in a second. Before we get to any of that, make sure you like, subscribe, leave a comment, and make sure you share this with people. It helps gets us going in the algorithm, and it really helps me get Mondays on Montlake moving forward. So, before we dive into the episode, and before I get into telling you what the episode is about, first I want to talk about the big news on the recruiting front. And that is the commitment from IMG cornerback Censere Gaylord. He's a 6 foot, 180 pound, 165 pound corner. One of the top, he's the top ranked guy right now for the Huskies, according to 247. Um, the commitment is huge. We get him over Georgia and Georgia Tech, who are the other finalists, and it's just showing you how the University of Washington is DBU West. Now, he's going to fit really good into this Ryan Walters system. He's very aggressive, can play press man just like Ryan Walters wants and calls a lot. He's also going to be tough and being able to stick his nose in there and be aggressive. Think of how Ephesians Prysock played last year, or if you want to take it a step further, somebody like a Devin Witherspoon. And so I'm not saying he's as good as those guys, but that's the kind of game he has. He's physical. He's going to get up in wide receiver face. And he also, being 6 foot, he's only 165 right now. But by the time he gets to college, I can see him being a little bit closer to that 200-pound mark. So we'll see how he progresses physically. But it's a really big get for UW. And I think that we're seeing this class that Jedd Fisch is putting together coming together beautifully. Now, let's move on to the meat and potatoes of this episode. So, what we're going to get into today is I want to break down 5 players on the UW roster that are not really known on a national level right now, but by October, they will. It's very important to realize this isn't a ranking. I'm not saying, oh, these are the 5 best players on the team or anything like that, because you're gonna have guys that I'm not putting on this list because they're already nationally known. And I want these to be guys that nobody's talking about right now, but when we hit mid-October and maybe we're sitting 5, 6, and 0, these are going to be some of the names that they're talking about nationally. And like I said, maybe some of you guys that are my everydayers that see the show all the time and know about, you guys are Husky heads. You guys are going to know about these players and know they're good. All right. So we're going to start with 5 and move to 1. And number 5 on this list is a guy that I think Husky Nation, we know he's been here for a few years now, and we've seen him make a lot of really good plays, especially along that defensive line. And that's defensive tackle Elinneus Davis. Elinneus Davis, he stands at 6'3", 312. He's strong as a bull. And I think you're going to see him probably play a little on the nose, but more than anything, you're going to probably see him lined up over the guards, and especially in that bear front, being one of those guys that can really attack, get after the quarterback. In 2025, Davis played all 13 games. He started 10 for the Dogs, including his career high game where he had 6 tackles against Purdue, four tackles with a half sack in the LA Bowl against Boise State. In 2024, he played in all 12 games and recorded his first sack against Eastern Michigan. The guy is a bull. When you watch him, I was watching the Maryland. I was rewatching the Maryland game the other day, and a few of these plays, you're seeing him catch double teams, stand his ground, or even if he gets pushed back a little bit, and still be strong enough to work it off, grab a guy with one arm, and make the tackle. He's really, really, really strong at the point of attack. He gets pushed from the inside. You'll notice it. He doesn't get big, gaudy sack numbers. And I think that's why you don't hear people talk about him on a national level, at least yet. Um, but what he does for the rest of the guys around him and the pressure that he causes and the havoc that he wreaks inside, it's almost kind of like Ontario Thompson was last year. If you go rewatch Ontario Thompson's tape, you'll see he was always being disruptive, even if he wasn't making the play. And I think Elinneus Davis has those same traits. Now, Washington doesn't necessarily need him to be a 10 sack guy, even though I would not be mad at him if he did come out and got 10 sacks. It needs him to control that interior. He needs to be a stump there in the middle, occupying blockers, preventing quarterbacks from comfortably stepping up into the pocket and keeping his line. He's not going to be playing in a completely different role from last year. He's going to be doing a lot of the same. I just think you're going to be seeing him doing it a lot more. I think by the time we get to October, he's going to have some stripes on his game where you're starting to see that he is able to not only get some pressure and get some push, but he's going to be making a lot of plays in the backfield. And I think nationally, people are going to start really taking recognition of what kind of a player Elinneus Davis is. And what's going to be crazy is the most important defensive lineman for UW might not be the guy that leads the team in sacks. And that's how I think Elinneus Davis is going to play out. Number 4 on my list, and this is one of my favorite players on the team, and I'm going to begin with that. I think he is an absolute stud, and he showed it last year, really shining in the secondary when he took over the starting nickel spot, and that's Rahshawn Clark. And he's a playmaker hiding in plain sight. I'm just going to say that. He's 5'11", 6 foot, around 200 pounds. He's from Garfield, so he's repping the town, 206. He played in 12 games with 5 starts in 2025. He recorded a 14-yard sack against Colorado State, intercepted passes against Illinois and Boise State, and forced a fumble against UCLA. And also, he's going to contribute this year as a punt returner. Clark is perfect for this because he's already produced meaningful moments. So Washington fans already really know who he is as a defensive headliner. He's already shown that he can affect a game in multiple ways. He can cover, he can blitz, he can create turnovers and tackle in space, and then contribute on special teams. He's perfect for what Ryan Walters wants in this defense. I was just talking about how Censere Gaylord kind of plays like that Devin Witherspoon role. I think Rahshawn Clark really can play that, and we saw it last year. We saw him make plays from the nickel, whether it was stepping up and making plays in the run game or in coverage. And I've said this online a bunch of times. I think Rahshawn Clark is Washington's best cover corner, and I thought last year, except for when Taco was on the field, I thought he was our best cover corner last year as well. That's how good I think Rahshawn Clark is. He's versatile, so like I said, he fits into Ryan Walters' system real well. My expectations for what he does this year, I think he's going to do all those things that I was saying in Ryan Walters' defense, but I think what's going to make him known nationally and on a level where people start talking about him and possibly an all Big Ten manner is what he does intercepting the ball. He reminds me of Asante Samuel, the way that he tracks the ball and then jumps routes. I think you're going to see that a lot from him this year, and I think he's going to make a big name in this Ryan Walters defense, and people are going to have to watch out because that's going to add to this whole lore of DBU West that Washington has created over the last decade and a half. Now, you can tell I like that dude. I think he's amazing. Number 3 on our list is linebacker Zaydrius Rainey-Sale. He is literally the future face of the defense. At 6'2", he's right around that 230-pound marker right now. At least that's what they've been saying. It's not what it says on the roster, but during spring they were saying amongst the practice when we were at practice that he's around that 230-pound mark. And I think If he can get up around 235, 240, I think that's exactly where you want him because he's a big kid from Tacoma. Um, he missed the first 5 games last year while recovering from a high school injury, then appeared in 8 games and started against Oregon. He had 6 tackles in his first career interception against Purdue, recorded a sack and 4 tackles against Oregon, and was named Washington's Newcomer of the Year at the postseason awards banquet. Um, I said this earlier on the pod post spring that I think ZRS might end up being the most important player on this defense. I'm going to tell you why. Because we don't have a pass rusher that is proven yet, him and X-Ray both are going to get a lot of chances to rush the passer because I think you're going to see him and X-Ray on the field with Manu or Buddha. They're going to play a lot of those three linebacker sets, and you're going to see him either shift to the line, but you're also going to see him maybe shift into the nickel as well. That's how good of an athlete ZRS is. Um, he didn't have a real normal freshman season because of the injury, but as soon as he got in, game after game after game, he got better and better and better. And I think that that's going to be exactly what we need to see from him. And he didn't get to, like I said, last year, he didn't get to participate in all the offseason practices and spring football. Think about what ZRS is going to look like after a complete healthy offseason and coming into camp with a clearly defined role as one of the major guys on our team. Um, like I said, I think you're going to see him used all over the field because of what his athletic ability brings. I think by October, ZRS will not merely be viewed as a talented young linebacker. I think he's going to be looked at as one of the best linebackers on the team, and he's going to be a guy that the conference is going to be looking at as one, maybe one of the best in the conference. That's how good I think ZRS is going to be, and I'm really excited to watch him play this year and get better. All right, now we're moving to number 2 on the list. Getting through this quick. This next guy's been on the roster for a long time, and I think from 2 years ago when he first got here to through last year, we saw a significant jump, and that's right tackle Drew Azzopardi. I think this is the year where the 6'7", 322-pound kid out of California who transferred here from San Diego State is going to play himself into an NFL role and get himself on an NFL roster. I think he's that good. And I think the jump is going to be that significant. Azzo started all 13 games at right tackle in 2024. In 2025, he played and started in 11 games, missing the Purdue and UCLA game because of injuries. And before returning against Oregon, he was named all Big Ten academic team and received Washington's Earl T. Glant Tough Husky Award. So the guy is tough. He's got NFL size. And I think that people nationally will know Washington's quarterback. If the offense succeeds, they're eventually going to ask who's protecting him. By the time we end up getting to October, you're going to start seeing him appearing on draft boards. Now, do I think he's going to be a first round pick? No. He does have the size to be that guy. I don't think he's going to be that. But could he play into maybe a day 2 or early day 3 pick? We didn't know what was going to happen with Carver Willis when he got here, and he played himself into that. He played himself into a third round pick. I think that you could see a similar trajectory with Drew Azzopardi, especially if he takes another step like he took last year. All right, my number 1 breakout candidate and the guy that I am probably the most excited to see play this year, and I think could do a lot in this offense, and that is wide receiver Rashid Williams. Now, when Rashid Williams came to Washington, I feel like it's like 4 years ago. he was a highly touted four-star recruit. And out of all the guys he was recruited with, he's the only one that's still here. Being about 6'1", 6'2", around that 200-pound mark, I think you could see a lot from him. Now, Williams has 18 career receptions for 222 yards and one touchdown. And those aren't crazy numbers. But one of the things that I think we know inside Husky Nation is that people understand Rashid Williams' talent. I think we've known that for a while. Nationally, he's almost completely unknown. And I think that could change very quickly if he becomes Damon Williams' primary targets. Why do I think he would become one of Damon Williams' primary targets? Well, when I was watching in spring, Damon Williams has already shown that him and Desmond Roebuck have a lot of chemistry and are good. But the wide receiver he seemed to trust the most from the practices I was at was Rashid Williams. And I think that came to a head in the spring game, when he hit Rashid Williams for that huge touchdown. I think that if by the time we get to October, Rashid Williams very well could be Damon Williams' number one target and could be working his way towards 1,000-yard season and being one of the better receivers in the Big Ten and being that number one that's replacing a guy like Denzel Boston. And not that I don't think Desmond Roebuck can't do that. I think Desmond Roebuck's going to get lots of catches and lots of opportunities. He's going to be doing it from the slot. But I think with what Rashid Williams brings with his speed, with his ability to run every route on the route tree, and then what we saw from his hands during the spring, if he stays healthy, he's going to be Washington's number one wide receiver. And I think that he's going to end up being a guy that people are going to say came out of nowhere nationally, while us here in Seattle know what he brings to the table, and he's just been stifled by injuries. I had a couple honorable mentions. One of the guys that I think is going to be close because I think he's going to win the number 3 position, and we're going to stay with the wide receivers, is Justice Williams, the 6'3", 6'4", 220-pound wide receiver. Just during the spring, he looks like he's taken that next step, and I think he's going to be a guy that's going to literally. He has everything that we need for that third wide receiver, that big body target in the back of the end zone. I think another guy that I think that was kind of amongst those honorable mentions is freshman running back Ansu Sanu. The 6'2", 241-pound running back is a bruiser, but he's also a lot faster than we thought. And with everything in the running back room being so up in the air because we haven't seen Jaden Lamar, we haven't seen Trey Cooley, we don't know what's happening with Jordan Washington. We know Quade Carr is pretty good. I thought Ansu Sanu kind of is that guy that maybe he doesn't rush for a lot of yards this year, but if we're giving him the ball on the goal line, what if he's a guy that had 10 touchdowns because we keep giving him the ball on the goal line? Could he be that guy? I think he has all the tools to do that. Another honorable mention is another freshman, and that's safety Gavin Day, the 6'3", 195-pound safety, is a guy that in the spring you saw what he could do in this this defense that he's still learning. He makes plays in the backfield. He's able to sniff out screens, and he's strong enough to get in there and make tackles. He's a great tackler in the open field. He also is great in coverage. We saw him with pass breakups. I think he's a guy that can play safety. I think you can move him in and play the nickel. I think you can play him up on the line, similar to what we do with Alex McLaughlin. Next guy that got one of my honorable mentions is, and this is the last guy, this is defensive lineman Deshaun Watts, the 6 foot, 313-pound transfer from Sacramento State, was the most disruptive defensive lineman in the spring. I'm not just talking about in the run game. I mean, he was getting pressure on the quarterback. He is a guy that his PFF grade against the run, I think, was the best in all of college football last year, even though he was playing at a lower level. He's a guy that when we start seeing him play against some of these. I think we're going to see it early, especially in the non-conference schedule, how disruptive he is. When we start, if he can carry that into the Big Ten schedule, because he's got good size, him being low to the ground like that, but still being a 313 pounder, he's going to get a lot of leverage on some of these taller interior linemen. And I think you're going to see him wreak a lot of havoc. And it's going to be exciting to see the defensive line in this bear front where maybe you do have an Elinneus Davis next to a Deshaun Watts, next to a Derek Coleman Brusa, and you get to see these guys really wreak some havoc. So I'm excited about Deshaun Watts. I can't wait to see what he brings to the table come fall. So closing, Elinneus Davis, Rahshawn Clark, ZRS, Drew Azzopardi, and Rashid Williams, I think are guys that maybe nationally are not known right now on July 13th, but they will be, let's say, come October 20th. All right, you guys. My name is Mike Flunt, aka Montlake Miguel, and this is Mondays on Montlake. We'll see you next week. Go Dogs.